How we doing, Cointraders? What is going on, fam? Gonna look at Aptos APT on that ticker. Now, earlier today, did make a tweet showing a picture of this chart on the daily, talking about what a good setup it is. So do want to do a video and cover that, especially what we're looking at and pretty much some of the possibilities and setups and what some of the signs are basically that we are looking at to basically kind of think that this is a pretty good setup right here. So yeah, if you didn't catch this yet, make sure you are following me here over on Twitter or X at coin_trades is the handle. Do look forward to chatting with everyone over there. Do post a little bit more frequently and provide a lot more updates over there. So definitely make sure you are dropping me a follow here over on Twitter or X. All right, so right now we are looking at the daily chart, but I actually want to flip over into this 2-day chart here for Aptos first, because one of the big things that we are looking at in a very big key price level is actually a pretty big line that's pretty much coming in right at about 786, 785-ish right there. So what we're seeing right now is a back test, and essentially a back test and confirming so far, more or less, this closing level of support. So looking left, big point of closing resistance, looking back, closing resistance, looking all the way left, big support before finally flushing that. So because we actually just found a candle here that closed a few days ago that did break this big level, and the last time we had prices that closed on top of it was before the June flush here. So definitely a great thing to actually finally find prices sitting above this big long resistance zone that we've been sitting in for over 6 months now. So yeah, like we said, although we did have prices slip back down a little bit below, we did have a very nice defense on top of this 26-period EMA. In addition, also have a complete taper off and decrease in bearish volume on this 2-day chart. So starting off with some of the biggest volume that we've actually ever seen on this chart so far. So a peak volume coming in, tapering off, does show selling exhaustion. And that's one of the reasons why we have very nice levels of defense right here on top of 786. So if we do lose 786, then that's probably going to be a bad sign, just because it was so relevant here in the past. So now, in addition, we also can draw an effective trend line here coming down and basically dissecting and intersecting at this whole point. So also have a little bit more downside support based on a lot of this tightening range for Aptos chart. So as you can see, ran up, set our high, set our low, lower high, and then tightening range, finally had our explosive move to the current, trend high right now at 922. So that is going to be one of our big upside targets. If we do, in fact, rally up from current levels to that high point, we're looking at about a 15% gain, more or less. But if we do actually zoom out, then beyond that, we're actually looking at several big targets to the upside on top. So if we actually look at the lines that I just drew, 914 on top of that 991. So effectively, the $10 psychological. Moving up past that, 1035. So we know that if we break 914, we're actually going to be looking at getting stuck up, most likely around the $10 level. And that's pretty much what we're expecting, especially since these exponential moving averages are, in fact, in a bullish formation. So the trend keeps back testing these, and we do make higher highs and higher lows. And so when we look at charts, especially on the longer term, as long as they are doing that and still finding longer term support on top of these exponential moving averages, that's a very good sign to show that the path of least resistance and the momentum is still heading to the upside, and we're very much in a nice bullish trend. So despite seeing several days and almost a week of continuous pullbacks, right now we're looking at about 12.5%. And this is also given the fact that we essentially unlocked a ton, about $200 million worth of Aptos tokens here. So about 10% of the circulating supply got unlocked. So despite all of that, still having a very nice defense of this level, not really seeing a lot of selling pressure continue. So we do know that the defense on this 786 line is starting to be very noticeable, and we are getting that confirmation. And now we do have about a day left on this 2-day candle, but if we do get especially a second follow-on candle after that, that'll be the next good sign that we look for. Now pulling up some technicals, RSI and stochastic RSI right now. If we actually look at a price level, or the line of where this RSI pulls back to, you can see it's pretty much right around the 50 to 55 line, which is exactly what we're looking at right now on this 2-day chart. And actually it did get lower than that when we actually bounced off this 26-period exponential moving average. But we know that we also have a little bit more room to the downside for this stochastic RSI to actually get below the 20 line. So that could still see the price here sitting in a little bit longer of consolidation before seeing the next leg to the upside, which is very possible, and that's totally okay. That is something that we saw after hitting our current trend high, sat in consolidation period for a little bit, before finally blowing off to the current trend high right now. So that's definitely a sign of a very strong continuous trend. And there's not really anything to be that aware of because it's not like we have just a surge undeserved of a huge explosive pump. Okay, so I do want to flip over here into the weekly chart, and one of the big things to point out and note, especially about the recent formation here, is just how awesome this setup is with regard to the exponential moving averages. So as you can see on this chart, we just started forming our 50-period EMA, but we did have it as resistance, finally had our very nice bullish candle on top of that, and now for the current and most recent 2 weekly candles, finding closing support on top of that. So once again, zooming out, as you can see, a big period of resistance on this 26-period EMA, finally flipped it and then did confirm it, maintain it as support. Now looking at the 50-period. Meanwhile, we got our nice bullish flip on the 12 and the 26. So we've already seen this setup across several other patterns in the crypto space, most notably ICP is one of the ones that does come to mind, and that just resulted in a huge, nice, awesome rally to the upside. Not exactly predicting that for Aptos right now, but just want to point out that this is still an extremely nice and bullish setup for a weekly chart. Definitely not a lot of threat, even potential to pull back, but even still, we'd only be looking back to support around 758, which in that instance on the weekly would align up with these exponential moving averages, confirm them, and then we would be back on our way again. We are seeing a lot of the rest of the crypto space start to be overextended on the weekly time frame though. So if we do get some slippage, that's not necessarily going to be that much of a surprise. We're not expecting it right now, but given the overall impact of the rest of the crypto market on every crypto, it's not necessarily something that would go unnoticed or unchanged in this Aptos chart. But yeah, so finally thing to note about this weekly chart is just the big period of volume on this candle. Meanwhile, you can see it's pretty much a spinning top doji with just amount of equal upside wick as downside shadow on it. Meanwhile, a small body completely engulfed by this previous weekly candle. So we know that all of the bearish candles here have been completely engulfed by the previous bullish candles. So we have bearish candle the week before completely engulfs it. Our most recent bearish candle on the week completely engulfed by the previous week. So still a lot of great things showing that the bears can't push down the prices and hold those. Meanwhile, all of what the bulls have done and all of the hard work that they put in the week before. So a lot of confidence showing, not a lot of selling pressure. And one of the things too is that we are establishing a little bit longer term of a longer floor. So one of the great things to see as well that we love to see. Okay, so now I want to flip over into the 4-hour chart here now and talk about some bearish cases in bearish scenarios, because despite looking at upside targets and all of that, we do have a potential, as always, for some bearish scenarios here that we do need to be mindful and prepared of. So up on the screen right now, a trend line to the upside that broke, also a downtrend resistance line right now still in effect. So if you look at these charts, very nice support on the upside, but until we broke it, now we are finding it as resistance again. Meanwhile, confirming the resistance downtrend line that we have been seeing for about the last 6 days or so. So really, if we do want to see any more upside, both of these trend lines are going to have to break. But the good news right now is that we are still holding a higher low on this trend. So the previous trend low that we had to look at was 735. Currently, we're holding a low on top of 747. So still making our high, pulling back, setting our higher low. So those are going to be the two levels that we actually end up looking at for support. So again, those are coming in at 735 and then at 747. So if those two levels break, then that will be a little bit of a downside signal that likely we're going to run down and test this low of support, which comes all the way down to about the 675 level. If the 675 level ends up breaking, then pretty much that's going to confirm that this is our trend high that has been set, because likely with such a big established support level breaking, especially after setting a new higher high, that does mean that most of the complete buying pressure has been exhausted, and likely in that instance, we will look to set a lower low on this chart and then form a new lower low or establish a longer term sideways consolidation range, probably on the multi-day or weekly chart. Personally, though, I think that given the exhaustion of selling pressure, especially the minimal amount of bear volume that came in on this final flush so far, it's probably likely that we have established our low point for support. And then also, given the size of this lower shadow, we know we have a lot of upside buying pressure coming in once we get below this 770 line. So do want to wrap up here on the daily, since we have been mostly talking about longer term charts here. And the final thing to point out is pretty much just how the bullish candle that happened on the 12th of December completely fit the following 6 bearish candle bodies inside of it. So one bullish candle body completely fits 6 days, almost a full week of bearish candle pressure. And that's also given the highest amount of bear volume that we have seen on this overall Aptos chart. So a lot of bear pressure coming in, still meanwhile, couldn't even break a lot of these supports. So on this daily, very nice support, like we said, especially on top of the 26 period EMA. And now having 6 days that completely fit inside one bullish trading day is a very good sign of strength, a little bit more. So I'm not necessarily expecting any sort of change in trend here for the longer term just yet. We might pull back a little bit farther and make a little bit more inside bar days, in which case we would need to evaluate if we're forming any sort of downside continuation pattern here, or if we are going to start to reverse and actually trend back to this current trend high coming in at 922. So hopefully that does clarify a lot and you have a better picture for Aptos right now. If you do have any questions about the chart or the analysis, drop a note down below. Also, if you did enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. Do drop me a follow over on Twitter or X at coin_trades. But otherwise, that will go ahead and wrap it up for now. So I do appreciate all continued love and support as always. Stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.